As Daddy Dragon live on YouTube. Last night I wasn't live on YouTube. I'm going to probably throw a couple of little clips in from YouTube, but try and stay away from it. Live on Rumble, our main platform. Don't forget, sharing is caring. Don't forget, hit the like button, and don't forget to subscribe. We're going to be going past that 10,000 marker tonight, and Rumble is the only real free speech platform out there. There's a number of things I was going to talk to you about tonight, but more of a chill out. So I will be. I got called obese today. By David Clews. I'll show you my response to him in a minute. It's quite well. I thought it was funny. I said at least I'm not Scottish. Everyone's laughing, right? That geezer's definitely. I think he's going the same way as Paul Thorpe and Richard Inman. I think they're like. I think they need a break or something. You know, maybe go out to communist China for a week. Put their feet up. Quite a bit going on anyway. But I do want to show you a couple of things. And I also want to talk about President Trump. He has been full on today about communism. And he said, basically, it's now on. He said, my whole life, I've waited for this opportunity to fight communism. And they're bringing a fight to us. So now we're going to go for it. And then I'm going to get into some other little bits about America, the law. And hopefully I'll explain a little bit about observance of due process. And if I start yawning for some strange reason, I don't know why, but I've just come over all tired. I'm like that. I'm getting old. Good evening. Good evening, DD, Janet and the English Warriors. Dotty Acid, Spooky Bubba, lucky you. What's going on there? Evening, Taffy Pat. Nosy Poke, evening, you old Pats. Evening, Timbrook 2. There's quite a few coming up there. So don't forget sharing. If you get me yawning a couple of times, I apologise. It's beep hot down here. Hopefully it'll cool off a bit tomorrow. I might even go and find a beach or a bit of sea or something. I've got to find some trousers first, some shorts. And then I need to find a pair of sandals. I'm thinking about going down to a sandy beach and sticking in my English flag and saying that's mine, that bit. A bit of alluvial sand. Trying to tell everyone. But one of the things I wanted to talk to people about, there's been this David Clews fella. It's definitely been a bit strange. But let me see if I can pull this over. I wanted to try and show you this. And I want people to understand where I'm coming from with this, right? He seems to be having a pop at everyone and their dog, including Steve Laws and others. But there he is, right? Tucker Carlson. I just love George Galloway. George Galloway, Britain can't remigrate foreigners because curry and footy. Also, I helped enable the slaughter of whites in South Africa under the sponsorship of Jewish activists. And I thought that's a bit intriguing, so I'm going to play it for you. And there's a few bits I'm going to play, yeah.
The race question in Britain can never really go anywhere. So if you try to frighten people into believing that Britain's problems are the fault of Abdul, who owns the local shop on the corner, or the fellow who you buy a piping hot curry from on a Saturday night.
You mean the ones who have been raping English kids all over England? Do you mean them ones, George?
In the high street, you're really not going to be able to solve the problems, because if you Remigrated is the new vogue word. If you remigrated every person of colour in Britain, well, first of all, the English football team would crash out at the first round of the World Cup in the United States next year.
I'm one of the few people on the left in Britain who travelled the length and breadth of apartheid South Africa as an underground agent of the African National Congress. The question of racism is
Known communists, by the way. And they're the people who've been killing whites out there.
particularly important to me. And in parenthesis, let me tell you this, that throughout the entirety of my time underground in South Africa under apartheid, every house I slept in, every dinner I ate, every car I drove in was provided by Jewish activists of the African National Congress.
Did you just hear that? Every house he slept in, every meal he ate, every car he was driven in was provided by a Jewish person who was supporting the African National Congress. All right? So I want you to understand that, because we're going to get on to something else in a couple of seconds. But again, I'm going to show. This is George Galloway's show on YouTube. Remember what I said. But just to make sure you've got this part on there, hopefully I can bring it back just a touch. Hopefully we've got the right element to it. I'm going to run this and then have a chat about it.
God, we don't want to. What I'm saying is that the potential for the kind of Napoleonic explosion of conquest or the Hitlerian fantasy in the Soviet Union, that's non-existent. I'm not worried about that. But what you do have, and you're absolutely right, we have a problem with who is really British, who is really an American, who is really French, who is really German. That's the thing that nobody wants to talk about publicly. If you say everybody can be everything, then we are all nothing. That's unacceptable. We have to define who we are. Now, that may not be exactly the same as what we've been for hundreds of years, but we need to do it. And we need to take care of the people who are us. Every government needs to provide for shelter, food, and security. That's what we expect our governments to do. When they don't do that, we should get rid of them. Your government is not providing adequate shelter, protection, and food for its own people. And that's the problem. Instead, they're condemning your people. They're treating their own people with contempt. We treat Americans with contempt here. And we open the gates and we threw it open under Biden and let millions of people in this country that we can't afford, who did not come here to become Americans, who are never going to be like us. So how do we recreate social cohesion? How do we build unity? How do we go back to being real countries? I think that's what's going on all over Europe. That's the explosion. That's the revolution. When that is settled, everything else will fall into place. And I don't know where we turn, because the people I look at on the political spectrum, George, there's nobody like you out there. You know, Andrew Jackson, someone else of Scottish ancestry, once said, one man with courage makes a majority. You've always been a man with courage. Where are the men of courage in British politics? Where are they in American politics? I mean, I got to be frank with you. I look at the people that are standing up in front of the microphone over there in Switzerland, and I get sick to my stomach. Who are we kidding? Who are these people?
So I'm going to stop it there and go on to the next part of this. But before I do, I want to see if I can find another element to this. This, again, so you've got George Galloway and David Clews. So David Clews again, and he talks about doffing his cap to George Galloway.
What's happened to her?
Well, I think you certainly are on fire tonight. And do I have to doff my cap now to you? Is it the right honourable gentleman, Mr. Galloway? Do we have to refer to you as now?
No. Just call me George, David.
Call me George. Well, congratulations, firstly, on an outstanding victory in Rochdale. And that really was another thing that has set the cat amongst the pigeons in the British establishment. And I think the way you've introduced it tonight is very right. And at the moment, people are looking at this, I think, quite flippantly with what is going on with Kate and not fully appreciating the gravity of the situation.
So, as far as I know, he's been on there a number of times talking to George Galloway, who we all know is a committed communist. So what I'm going to do is stop sharing that and go back to this, right? Today, I actually put out another document, which I'm going to probably show you all because I think it is a fantastic... I was going to do a readout of it tonight. It is a fantastic document. Let's see if I can go and find it. And we'll get to the next part. So far, it's had 140,000 views off my account. And it's this one. And then I'm going to take you to another element to it. Let me just put you on there so you can see it. Everyone should be aware of this. If you're not aware of it, copy link out. I don't know if anyone wants me to read this out, but I will if you want. There it is to everyone coming out there now. Conservative Woman's Article Day is a must read. Thank you. And there it is. And I thanked English Veteran because he actually sent it out to us. But a couple of good parts of this were, let me see if I can put that on the screen for you. It was the world's first ever nation, talking about England, nation state, a people unified under one language, one king and one religion. Britain is a relatively recent political construct, and British identity is only a superficial civic meaning. So just in case there's people out there, this, from my understanding, is going viral because people are reading what was said. Let's see if I can bring it up. And again, there it is. It is time. Is it time for an independent England? And then you've got this particular person who wrote it. And there it is, the English flag. Does anyone want me to use this tab instead? So I'll just make sure you can see it. There it is. Right. Does anyone want me to do a readout of it? A recent BBC programme about English identity considered what it means to be English as deeply contentious debate. All right. Everyone knows that I even brought this up at our seminar in Mablethorpe. Defining identity is a hot topic. Recognising differences between Britishness and Englishness is part of this debate. It raises questions about national sovereignty and the future of the Union. The nations of the United Kingdom are distinct, both genetically and culturally. Each one has its own well-defined national history, and Britain is a relatively recent political construct, and British identity has only a superficial civic meaning. On the other hand, English identity has much deeper roots, which are far more profound and significant. Native English people are predominantly Anglo-Saxon in origin. Following the Roman withdrawal in AD 410, the indigenous Celtic population in Britain was left undefended and unable to prevent the large-scale settlement of Anglo-Saxons from Northern Europe. These newcomers were ethnically and culturally different and spoke an unrelated language. They brought with them a different set of values and customs and built a high-trust society around small independent family units and non-familial communities. An individualistic way of living replaced the clannish culture of the Celts. Local decision-making supplanted the centralised structure of absolutist Roman governance. Right, so Roman governance was a top-down model, and it was they were the biggest slavers in the world. Right, English common law provided a just and fair legal system based on Christian teachings. Individual rights to property and family inheritance were enshrined in law. Anglo-Saxon kings were elected to office subject to the law of the land, and these rulers governed through wittens, the forerunner of the modern day Houses of Parliament. The Venerable Bede first recognised the English as a distinct people in AD 731. Over the following 200 years, independent Anglo-Saxon kingdoms began merging into a single nation. Athelstan's victory over Northumbrian Vikings at York in AD 927 established the Kingdom of England in a geographical form that is recognisable today. It was the world's first ever nation state, a people unified under one language, one king, and one religion. Remarkable feats of ancient engineering separated the English from the rest of the people in the British Isles. In the 8th century, Offa built a 200-mile dike to prevent Welsh invasions of his Anglo-Saxon kingdom of Mercia. Hadrian's Wall, built by the Romans in the 2nd century AD, remained a functioning defensive barrier against Scottish raids for centuries. Plans to upgrade it existed until well into the 16th century. In other words, we wanted to build a bigger wall. The English had no particular designs on territories beyond these defensive lines. However, other kingdoms of the British Isles attempted to destroy the new English state at its birth. In AD 937, a military alliance of British kings was defeated by a huge Anglo-Saxon army of around 100,000 at the Battle of Brandenburg in Cheshire. The battles of York and Brandenburg were events of tremendous significance in the story of England, yet are barely remembered today. Following the Anglo-Saxon settlement in the 5th and 6th centuries, England remained a remarkably stable nation in terms of the composition of its population. The levels of immigration were extremely low for centuries. Norman immigration in the 11th century and Huguenot immigration in the 16th and 17th centuries was measured in tens of thousands. Even within England, the movement of indigenous people was minimum. Those able to trace ancestors to locations before the Industrial Revolution will often discover that generations of their family lived in the same place for hundreds of years. New arrivals started to increase throughout the Industrial Revolution in the 19th century, most notably from Ireland. Around 600,000 people born in Ireland were recorded in the 1861 census of England, comprising about 3% of the total population at that time. Communities of Indian, African, and Chinese sailors were established in some English port cities. However, they only numbered a few hundred people. Between 1880 and 1914, and this is the bit that I've spoke about many times in the past, an estimated 250,000 Jews came to England fleeing Tsarist pogroms in Russia. A further 70,000 arrived after escaping from Nazi Germany in the 1930s. Up to 160,000 Polish refugees come at the beginning and the end of the Second World War. Larger scale immigration began in a post-war period between 1948 and 1992. Net migration averaged around 50,000 a year. Most came from Commonwealth countries following the collapse of the British Empire and the subsequent post-colonial wars and expulsions. By the mid-1970s, there were more than 1.5 million immigrants, accounting for about 3% of the total British population. In 1992, the Maastricht Treaty granted EU citizens the right to live and work in Britain, and net migration increased to about 100,000 a year during the 90s. The Treaty of Accession in 2004 brought an additional 10 countries into the EU, and net migration quickly grew to 300,000 a year. The Brexit vote in 2016 reflected the public's desire to control increasing levels of immigration. Despite this, there was a deliberate government policy to increase numbers, particularly after the labour market failed to return to its pre-COVID lockdown participation rates. In the year ending March 2023, annual immigration was nearly 1.5 million, and annual net migration was nearly 1 million. Today, there are around 12 million foreign-born people living in Britain, about 20% of the total population. This scale of immigration has not happened since the Anglo-Saxon invasion. Furthermore, the recent rate of change in the population mix has never been seen before. The vast majority of the new arrivals have settled in towns and cities in England, and it is mostly English people who have had to absorb this cultural change, right? It was mostly English people that have had to deal with this, not the Scottish, not the Welsh, and not the Irish. The reason why they're all the Scots, the Welsh, and the Irish are coming into England is the same reason these other migrants are coming into England, right? Failure to take back control of the national borders after the Brexit vote was the denial of democratic decision made by predominantly English voters. Scotland, along with nationalist areas of Wales and Northern Ireland, voted in favour of remaining in the EU to destroy England. Devolution has created an unfair situation whereby political representatives from Scotland and Wales are able to vote on English matters without any reciprocal arrangements. The reallocation of funds to different nations of the Union also means that English taxpayers pay a disproportionately higher amount for public services compared to their neighbours. Philosophical and political differences regarding basic values between the nations of the Union have also become increasingly apparent. For example, lockdowns expose policy variations between different devolved administrations on what were considered acceptable restrictions to basic civil liberties and freedom of speech, mainly affecting England. In the early 17th century, English politicians fiercely resisted attempts by King James I and his son Charles II to unite their Scottish and English realms. The subsequent civil wars of 1639 to 1653 highlighted the ethnic, cultural and religious differences between the nations of the British Isles. It took the bankruptcy of Scotland following an ill-conceived plan for Scottish colonial empire to bring about the creation of the British state in 1707. We bowed them out. Wider acceptance of a unified British state started taking root among the nations of the Union around 200 years ago. Driven by the Napoleonic Wars, this was followed by the huge social and economic upheaval of the Industrial Revolution, which led to a political and social reform. These events helped develop bonds between different national groups, and ideas of Britishness and British values were promoted by the state. The psychological trauma of the First and Second World Wars helped further cement a sense of togetherness between the nations of the Union. However, since then, the pillars on which British identity were built have been severely eroded. The end of the empire, deindustrialisation and devolution have raised questions about the legitimacy of the Union and its future. Even the fundamental legal basis of sovereignty of the United Kingdom, founded on the Acts of Union 1800 between Great Britain and Ireland, has been undermined by the post-Brexit Windsor Framework, which imposes trade restrictions between Great Britain and Northern Ireland in clear contravention of the integrity of the Union. That was an add-on, but I'd get back to that. Northern Ireland are part of England. The concept of Britishness hangs on through declining British institutions such as the monarchy, the BBC and the National Health Service. Britain's constitutional system is broken by the British, right? It's an English constitution, and the Scots have a claim of right. Except if you're David Clews, of course, you then particularly don't like the English. The social contract between the political class and the people has been shattered, and trust in the institutions of state is at an all-time low. On the other hand, English identity is increasingly celebrated, and England's own unique political, religious and cultural history is being more widely recognised. The British state has become dysfunctional, and its long-term future is under threat. Established political parties, traditional supporters of the Union, are losing their long-standing dominance in an increasingly fractured political landscape. Democratic legitimacy is threatened by an increasingly disengaged and demoralised population. An alternative form of governing based on genuine national identity and a sense of belonging should be considered. Since being a nation without its own state, it is perhaps time to bring back separate independent English state from which political trust can be re-established and institutions rebuilt to serve the interests of the English people. Well, for a short essay, that was spot on. I don't know the geezer who's wrote it. There's much more I possibly would have said to that, but an essay is an essay, right? Tell me what you think of that in the audience. Send it out there. Give me your indications. Can everyone hit that front, please? Spooky Babbitt. I may watch this movie to see if it's realistic. What movie? Timbuktu. Do you want the pic on the back of the t-shirt of the front? What? Jules, spot on. Anything you read is great, DD. Oh, right. So going on from that, I just think I need to show you this other element, right? So I'm going to bring this in. And I'm sure it was, let's see if I can go and find it. I'll have to go and find the actual, and then I'm going to go on to the next subject, because the geezer bores me to death, which is that David Clews. He is literally, let me tell you something now, I've got no issue with the Scots. They have got a serious socialist problem in Scotland, right? And when they keep ranting on about the Jews, when the English kicked the Jews out of England, they went to fucking Scotland, right? And when he sorts out that problem, he can come and talk to us about the Jews, right? There's plenty of historical data to say, listen, Scotland, we should never have bailed Scotland out. In 1706, 1707, right? We should have allowed them to fail. That is the capitalist way of doing things. They tried to take over an area of South America and failed. Not once, but twice. Just to make sure people are aware of that, right? And these people just don't want to talk about it. I'm not even sure if that's the one. I'll bring it up, right? And you can tell me, right? So what I did was I replied that there was something on Lotus Eaters, and I sent a copy of that particular readout that I just did, and I sent it to Lotus Eaters and said, because David Clews was having a pop at everyone like he's doing. I don't know. I think he's gone a bit cranky, right? And I said, David Clews is just a ponce. He's a Scot that's ponced off the English. And that's all they're good for, because they can't sort out their own country. Instead, they've got to remain a part of England because they know they're in the shit in a big way. They know they're in the shit, right? But just to make sure you understand this, I said I wasn't overly aggressive towards him or anything like that. I'm just telling him the truth. So he then goes and picks his mates. So Hope Not Hate and the BBC have took this image of me, right? And he's used that image because he didn't like the fact that I said, "What are you doing talking to George Galloway again?" Right? And what I said was, Clews, this is in reply to Sargon, Arcad and Unity News Networks, David Clews, right? Clews, he's always been a left. I've said Clews, he's always been a lefty, poncing off the English. He hates this article, and then I've given a link to the article, right? And what he said is, talking about me, right? And you are an obese slob selling burger bar nationalism, right? So again, he doesn't like the English. He wants to continue with the Union, and so do the Scots, because, by the way, the Labour Party have already said if England becomes independent, there will never be another national socialist party in power ever again, right? Because what they're doing is they're getting empowered by Scotland, Wales, and Ireland, and that's how they're controlling us, right? So there he says that, and you are an obese slob selling burger bar nationalism. So I think it's clear that I speak about the English Constitution. I don't see how that's burger bar nationalism. I'm also a capitalist, right? I believe that Scotland should sink or swim, and I know for a fact it will sink, right? Because of people like David Clews, right? If that's their calibre of Scot, and George Galloway, if that's their calibre of Scot, right, they are completely and utterly finished, right? And they know it, by the way. They're welcome to all the foreigners. And then I've just replied to him quite simply, at least I'm not Scottish. Well, I don't see the problem with that, right? Nor did Andy the Gabby Cabby. He thought he's fucking hilarious, right? But that's the type of person that you're dealing with, right? He's obviously got some sort of issue, right? So let me stop that again. I'm going to go back because I've just seen a message come in. I don't know where that is. You emailed me when? Depends what you're emailing me. I've got if you do it to the ECP one, I'll see it. If you're doing it to the Graham.Moore at Proton Mail, it's a bit more difficult. But let me go back to something else now. I'm going to try and show you this. So we're going to skip on to the next subject. I'm seeing all this nonsense. I'm seeing all these attacks on Restore Britain. They're terrified of Restore Britain. And I'll tell you now, Restore Britain are coming closer and closer to understanding, especially if you have a proper conversation. He's still making errors, Rupert Lowe, but listen, he's been indoctrinated by whether or not it's a state school or a private school. The education system itself is corrupt. It's corrupted people's minds. I think he's terrified. Right, let me have a quick look and see what I can say. I'll have to go and have a look at something in a couple of seconds. I'm not sure what that one is. Let me go and have a look at something else. So what I wanted to do was just bring something else up. Now, we've been talking about the right to keep and bear arms. It's an English right and it's a Protestant right. there is a particular reason in history, and it was a pre-existing right. It's an Anglo-Saxon right. No one has the right to take it off us. No government, no king, no one. In fact, the king and his government have got absolutely no right to take it off us or legislate against us, right? Or infringe upon that right for us to carry and keep and bear arms, right? For self-defense, and especially if you're Protestant, right? But there was something else that has come up in 2 or 3 different cases, and especially in the last week in America. And one of them cases was due process, right? And I just want to make sure people, I'll have to try and find it. I'll have a look. I doubt if I'll find it. It's in Proton now, right? But I am going to bring this up. Now, Jason, who I was talking to, come on the show the other night from America. Why the case was so important. Let me see if I can get this down to the right angle, because we've just got another. I just want to make sure I put this up. Do you remember what I said to you about America? And I'm not bitching about America. I love America. I love American people. I love the independent United States of America. I'll put some tweets out about that today, right? But this is their booklet, right? Which covers the English Bill of Rights and the Constitution. It's really important that people understand this. There's a section of that that talks about due process, right? Due process means the process in which, so for example, if someone wanted to come to your house and search your house, it has to be done in a certain way. There has to be a warrant signed. They have to be looking at something for in particular. They can't come in on a fishing trip because it's your home, right? They either suspect you of a crime and know where they're looking, or they don't, in which case the warrant cannot be issued, right? That's one version. That's one type of due process. There's many parts of due process. Where does it come from? Again, it comes from England, right? And it is still law. This, what I'm about to show you, is still law. Hopefully I've got it up on your screen. Observance of Due Process of Law, 1368. All right. So this is still law. So if I pick up my law book there, which is Halsbury's Statutes of England, that's one of the ones that's in constitutional law, right? It's not only is it a constitutional statute, it's still there, it still exists, right? So you've got something called the short title. So the short title is Observance of Due Process of Law 1368. Then it tells you when it was created, what term it was created, or what reign, and Edward III. Then it's got the long title. So that's that one there. It says a statute made at Westminster on the 1st day of May in the 42nd year of King Edward III, right? And then it says it's telling you that this is still there, right? So this is chapter 3. None shall be put to answer without due process of law. Item, at the request of the Commons by their petitions put forth in this Parliament, to eschew the mischiefs and damages done by divers of his Commons by false accusers, which oftentimes have made their accusations more for revenge and singular benefit than for the profit of the King or his people, which accused persons some have been taken, sometime caused to come before the King's Council by writ, and otherwise, they was abusing the system, in other words, an abusive process, upon grievous pain against the law. It is assented and accorded for the good governance of the Commons that no man be put to answer without presentment before justices, right? Or matter of record, so you go to the higher court, or by due process and writ original, right? Now, listen to this bit because it's important. According to the old law of the land, and if anything from henceforth be done to the contrary, it shall be void in law and holden for error. Right? That is still law in this country, and it's where you get due process from in the United States of America. Do you remember when I said to you, if you look at this book, America's story around their Constitution and Bill of Rights is the story of the Declaration of Independence and the war of independence with the British, not the English. The Americans were English, right? It was their war with the British. And they stood up and said, we want the same rights as an Englishman. And what went into their document were those rights. But with England, we have a different situation, right? We are 1100 years old. So we have something called a common law constitution. It is a far better constitution, but at separate stages, you can tell the story to the judge of how we got these rights, how they can't be taken away, and how they can never be taken in the future. That law on your screen is still the law of the land, right? So again, what I'm going to do now is take off of that, right? So next time I do, that's part of our presentation. But again, what you're seeing now is this on your screen. You probably can't see it too well. There it is there. And what I'm going to do is raise it up. Now, we've just got a new banner, right, delivered, which we're going to be taking to our seminars. And as part of the seminar, we will be showing people what it is. So again, look at the top. It's English. Common law constitutional rights belonging to the English. They're heir rights. It is your inheritance, right? It cannot be taken away from you. And again, if you looked at the Act of Settlement 1701, it tells you that at chapter 4, that the laws of England are the birthright of the people thereof, right? And what they mean by that is English people. The right of the realm of England and its subjects to defend themselves, right? That's the right to keep and bear arms. The right to a jury, the right to remain silent, the right, these, and so again, if you look at that, these are all due process, the right to a jury, the right to remain silent. Again, if you looked at the Fifth Amendment in America, they have the right to plead the Fifth. It's called pleading the Fifth. It means I have the right to remain silent. I'm not saying anything. It's for you to prosecute me, not the other way around. The right to earn a living, right to property freehold. And again, there's some things that we can go through on this. But what I really want to go for at the moment is this element here, right? So apart from that one, the election of members of Parliament ought to be free, right? And that means freedom of election, meaning you can't interfere with it. That's what it actually says. But what I'm going to do is bring this one up on the screen. Commissioners for ecclesiastical causes and all other commissions and courts of like nature, e.g. Sharia via Sharia councils, halakhic via Beth-Din courts, and any foreign religious law are illegal and pernicious, right? You cannot have them in England. Why is it, again, that Rupert Lowe and others are not talking about this when they should be? There are already cases in law about this. And I was actually at a lecture at the one of the Inns of Court in London, where Lady Howe was giving a lecture. She was actually asked by a Muslim lady, when will Sharia be legal in England? And Lady Howe said, never. It is unlawful and against the English Bill of Rights. Right? That's what Lady Howe said, who was the president of the Supreme Court of England. So the bit I don't get is, why is it that Rupert Lowe and others are not saying that, right? And there is a video of that as well. So again, just to make sure everyone gets this, let's hope I can bring this up further. I'm not sure if I can. I'll try and bring it up a little bit further that you can see so again, you've got another clause there, that no foreign prince, person, prelate, state or pontificate have or ought to have any jurisdiction, power, superiority, preeminence or authority, ecclesiastical or spiritual, within this realm, so help me God. So help me God means it's a solemn, that's a solemn oath that was taken, the supremacy clause, right? And there at the bottom is the common law constitutional rights removed by the British. And then on the right-hand side, you can see clearly what the image is. It's a wolf, not in sheep's clothing, but in British clothing. His hat is a communist hat, and the badge on the front there, quite clearly you can see. By the way, this is now a banner. That is the Fabian Society, and then you've got them having control of the House of Commons. And again, the British flag technically is the flag of the House of Commons. It is the parliamentary flag. It is not the flag of England, Scotland, Wales, or Northern Ireland, right? It depicts them and centralisation. It is communist in nature, right? So all I'm doing is just making sure you all understand that. Right, so there's a quick brief on what I was doing. There's some other bits I want to have a quick look at. Let's see if I can go back and see if there's anything strange going on. I don't know what's going on there. What is that one? And again, last night, everyone should understand that I covered off completely. Let me have a look. Let's see if I can bring that up. And there's a couple of things I want to show you as well. But last night I covered off the citizen vigilante. That's done quite well. As far as I know, it's had millions of views already. It has been banned in effect in the UK and banned in Germany, right? Basically, because this guy. Now, one of the things that I just don't get at all, right? Tell me if I'm wrong or not. All of a sudden, you've got all these ephonats saying that the main character, whatever his name is, right, is Jewish. I'm like, what the fuck? I said, yeah, but he's Jewish. It's just Jewish propaganda. I'm like, so Elon Musk and others, right, are showing that they're with you. He's put it on his platform for 48 hours free of charge, and all the fuck you can say is the main character is Jewish. Really? I was like, I just don't get it, right? And I want to make sure I emphasise this to everyone, right? Whilst I have issues with the Jewish mafia, as I would with any mafia, right? And there is a Jewish mafia. Not everyone who's Jewish is in the mafia, right? They're not all. I'm not saying they ain't got hold of it, and a lot of communists are Jewish, right? I'm not saying that I'm saying that they've got to get hold of it and they've got to do something, right? But to say things like that is definitely a bit strange, in my opinion. Anyway, I'm going to show something else because I think it's pretty poignant. I'm going to bring this up. There's been loads of stuff from President Trump today, and I think we're getting pretty close to something happening. But I'm going to play this to you. Right, here we go.
These are not social democrats. These are hardcore, godless communists. They're godless communists. All communists are godless. They don't believe in God. This is the most serious threat to our country since its existence, in my opinion, 250 years ago. This is a major threat to our country. It isn't something that's easily solved, but with a little love and help, some hard work. Because it's ironic, we're celebrating a very important birthday, our most important birthday so far, 250 years. And instead of speaking about Christ, and instead of speaking about freedom and victories of all different kinds, we're speaking about yet another threat to the foundations of America. These ruthless communists will attack all religions, but in particular Christianity. They always do. They're after Christianity more than any other religion. It seems to be more and more throughout the world, maybe because we're doing so well. I don't know.
So basically, that's just part of what he said. He also said that they'd hit Nigeria quite hard. He said they'd taken out Boko Haram's top 3 leaders, and they've told Nigeria, basically, if you don't sort this out yourself, then we'll come sort it out for you, right? Because you're not going around killing. Bear in mind, Nigerians are black, right? Well, you're not going around killing Christians, and you're not raping Christians. You're not doing these things. We are going to take you out if you don't stop it. And evidently, a lot of them deaths, rapes, etc., is now stopped because they took out the complete management of that. And he made reference. We did the same in Iran, right? There's some other things I could say about Iran, and especially Venezuela. So some things going there. It's probably my sound system, not anything else. But let me see if there's anything else coming up on there. Catherine, the English brief. Everything's going out there. Right. So there was lots of other things that you spoke about. Are you all aware? If I can find it, I'll bring it up. Right. Because I think this is important. He has basically told the EU where to get off in a big way today, and the UK. Right. Here it is. I won't be up. I'll have to try and bring it up and read it off to you. But he's not sent this out long ago, a couple of hours ago, right? He ain't messing about. And I think the nearest person that we've got to someone like Donald Trump is and I'm going to come back to some. You need to remind me about Whigs and Tories, right? So Donald J. Trump has said this: numerous European countries have been discussing the imminent implementation of a digital services tax on American companies. Some of these countries are close to actually doing this. Please let this statement serve to represent that any country that imposes such a tax will be immediately met with a 100% tariff on any and all goods sent to the United States of America. This tariff will supersede trade deals made with the country, whether implemented, signed or not. Additionally, the 100% tariff will immediately be imposed if they proceed. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. Right. So, as you can all see, he ain't messing around. And I believe one of them countries that was looking at some form of digital tax was the UK on America. In a way, they was trying to force out American social media companies, right? But I do want to bring this up as well. I have heard a lot of talk about Rupert Lowe being a Tory, right? And again, I am seeing many attacks. The more attacks I see on him, the more I know he's not going to get he's not going to get all his phrasing and his wording. And why should he get it all perfect for every single person? It's almost impossible, right? Because what one phrase or word means to one person, especially since Marxism completely took over, could mean something completely different, right? If I say I like a faggot, it doesn't mean I like a puff. It means I like eating meatballs with onions and gravy, right? There are many different ways of expressing things, and at the moment, I just think it's daft that the attacks have been so bad on Rupert Lowe and others in his team, right? And I just don't want to get involved with that. I think he's 80% of what I want. He annoys me with some of the things he comes out with, but not enough to freak out. Not enough to think this geezer's a wrong one. And then I see people like David Clews referring to him as a Tory, right? Now, let me just give you an explanation, a rough explanation of what a Tory is. The word Tory come from Ireland, right? And it described the barons and the robber barons as the Tories, right? They were old school landed gentry. And there was another group of people that were called the Whigs. And the Whigs were pretty much fed up with the way that the Tories or the landed gentries imposed things upon them that they didn't like. The the Whigs were another group of people that really come to fruition as we started inventing. We had the Industrial Revolution. The merchant class was kicking in a big way because of the shipping. So you had a different class of people who just appeared, right, over time. Basically merchants, businessmen, clever people, people that actually got somewhere in their lives, right? That the average peasant who didn't like a proper bit of hard work, probably couldn't read or write, someone very similar to David Clews, they would then be attacking everyone. But the Whigs, there are slight differences with some of the Whigs, but the core element of this is that my definition, which it won't be everyone's definition, but my definition of, even if he described himself as a Tory, right? My definition of Rupert Lowe and his family is not of a Tory. It more leans towards a Whig, because his family over 100 years have built up an electric and electrical mechanical company, and they've reinvested the money, they've educated their children, they've done all this thing, and they have created a family wealth, right? That's more Whig than it is Tory. Tory is someone like a lord or a baron or someone who goes back centuries and centuries and centuries and owns a big chunk of land. Often it was given to them by the Normans. And again, before that, we had a allodial title. Again, if it was me and Northern Ireland, I would make Northern Ireland completely independent. It would be a protectorate of England, but everyone in Northern Ireland would go back to having an allodial title. That means they've got skin in the game. When they buy their property, it's their property. Whatever they do on their property, it's their property. The laws absolutely protect what they're doing out there, right? And that's exactly how it is with the Isle of Man, because the Isle of Man is still an allodial title, the same as Shetlands and Orkney Islands, right? Which technically are not to do with it, with the Scottish Union, or to do with the Scots, right? That's a fact, by the way. And people like David Clews need to wind his neck in with certain aspects of it. So my opinion of Rupert Lowe, and the reason I say he's not a Tory, because he and his situation remind me very much of my dad in terms of how he's built his business up, right? And my dad built a family business, etc. For various reasons, he got the capital. We won the pools in 1952 instead of spunking it. He bought a couple of factories. He employed his brothers. They all got on well. I think there was two brothers were directors, my dad being one of them. One of his cousins was a director, and his best friend was a director. They were the four directors of the company. And they run that business and operated that business for at least 40 years, maybe longer. But certainly people paid their mortgages off, fed their kids, employed lots of people, etc. And my dad always voted Labour, right? Even his brother, who was a business partner, said, "Why are you voting for them?" Right? But my dad was a worker. He still works on a lathe every day of his life. He was a mechanical engineer, a metal spinner. He loved what he did. He didn't want to come off the lathe. To him, making stuff was what you do. So that's why I think the difference between, so my if you really want an analogy of the past, I think that Rupert Lowe fits more to a Whig mentality than he does as a Tory. And I don't think, and what I'm trying to say to you is, I don't think he even knows that, right? So what they call in America the Grand Old Party, or the GOP, right, which are the Whigs. And the Whigs mainly were merchants that come from England and settled in America. And they brought the Constitution with them, the fact they could read or write, they was very clever, etc. George Washington was an English descendant. All of that stuff. Most of them, in fact, were English. Is that enough of a history lesson? Do you sort of all understand what I've just said? So I'm seeing all these people. I think that the state is terrified of Rupert Lowe. I think the state are terrified of Restore Britain. I think strategically they should be very careful what they do in terms of where they go to stand. I think any red, even if they want to make a point, a red area, meaning a red wall, is dangerous. But I think there's only so much reach that the corruption of Common Purpose, the Fabian Society, and others there's so much reach that then people have got. In a general election, I think they'd be bang in trouble. What I'm saying, not Restore Britain. I'm saying the Labour Party and their cheat. They would still cheat in the red wall areas, and that includes London. That's why I don't think there's much that they can do with London until they're off. But they want to get the Londoners out, helping them in different areas. My opinion is they should stick heavily to Norfolk, take Norfolk back, massively get their police commissioner elected, and also target Manchester. But I'm not sure how well they're going to do, only because it's a red wall area. But Norfolk is a different matter. It's a rural location. People have a different attitude. Everyone's had enough. They will definitely, in my opinion, they've got a good chance of getting the police commissioner elected. Once that happens, they tell the chief constable what to do, and it is the police commissioner who sacks the chief constable. You just keep sacking them, right, until they do as they're told. And they do what you're telling them to do, not what they want to do. And by the way, the chief constable should not be doing what the Home Secretary tells him what to do, right? So just to make sure I've got everything right there. Everyone okay with what I've just said? George Washington caught for the English against the French, and fought for the English against the French in the Americas before the Revolutionary War, right? This is stupid, for it's nothing to me. Kyrgyzstan is all a meme, was unto this day. Jack Bow, I wish I was at times. What's this one say? Liverpool has some great nostalgic memories for me. Liverpool's lovely. I mean, the people are lovely. It's just the fact that they're captured. Andy, I purposely adopted certain Liverpool dialects rather than a Yorkshire. It comes in very handy at times, keeping people away from me. The fans are on and moving warm air around, so not much affected. I'm sweating. Let me have a look at this. Anyone else? Rebecca Hicks. Yeah, thanks for all your hard work and the team's endeavours. We appreciate you. I don't know who that was to, but I think it was to everyone. Juicy and Lucy, Western Supermare, all-day seminar, tickets now on. Oh yeah, I've got to work out what I'm doing with that and all. I've got so much work to do, it's unreal. Anyway, that's it. Thank you. Anyone want to ask me any questions? Ask me a question. Any question you like. Not sure how many people are watching. Don't forget, sharing is caring. Don't forget to hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, come across over to Rumble and hit and just start using that platform, because sooner or later the other platform's going to go pear-shaped in a big way. Let me have a look. Merlin, everyone up there. Question: where's my invite to tea? To invite to tea? What, you want me to invite you to tea? There's nowhere to fucking have tea in here. It's too small. If I live somewhere else, if there's someone I might be, if I go somewhere else, I'll let you know. Chuck Money, Graham, airspeed of the African swallow. What? Airspeed of the African swallow. Ace Jace, God bless you. Romsley. Let me have a look. Blythings. Cheers, DD and Jake. Take care of yourself, Julie. Mosey spoke. Rebecca, Truth Finder. Night, Graham. God bless you. Constitution is the solution. It is indeed. Keep sending this out and get it out to Graham. Do you think the people will start to get that the fact that voting for Uniparty is like voting for the agenda and what the true solution? Yeah, I do think people are going to get that. Resent you that email. Let me have a quick look and see if I can find it. Not sure if that's going to come up on here, but we'll try. Oh, balls, it's gone pear-shaped already. Let me see if I can get that down a bit. Did you resend it on Proton Mail or the other one? Let's have a look. Instant Bank. I don't know what that is. Hi Graham, I'll watch your YouTube channel as much as I can. And I was struck by what you were saying the other day about where their right to keep and bear arms defence is used. The state usually drops charges against the individual to avoid building case law against themselves. Yeah, no, I agree. This brought me to the conclusion that to get that judgment, you need to be the one bringing a case against someone else so that it gets seen through the judgment. The ideal candidate in mind would be a tourist attractions in London. A few years ago, I visited the London dungeon with a wife and kids, and my UK legal pocket knife was confiscated by security at the door to be returned when I left. This would be depriving visitors of their constitutional right to keep and bear arms, wouldn't it? And if so, this would be something where a civil claim challenge could made out and not dropped by the state. Were a person to visit the attraction and record this going on, would they be able to initiate proceedings of civil rights violations? Yeah, they could do. But it wouldn't be against the government. It would be against the security firm taking a knife off you. Unless a police officer did it. And then it's against the individual police officer. That's who you've got to sue, not the chief constable. In reading this, it's probably very clear I know nothing of the law. No, you do. But you do. And I hope this is may be useful. All the best to you and Mrs. Dragon. Thank you very much. No, I do. Did anyone just hear that sort of quick readout of what was going on there? There are lots of things that people can do. And people need to start claiming their rights, right? The more people start standing up and challenging, but when you get into the high, you can't have a solicitor, you can't have a barrister, you've got to do it yourself. And we've got to be able to create this thing where we've got to be able to challenge the fact that they changed the English Bill of Rights in terms of they took out the top and bottom part. We've got to challenge the fact that the English Bill of Rights and the debate at the time, they'd already agreed that we had the right, and they was actually putting it into writing, confirming it with the Declaration of Rights, and that's what the King swore an oath to. So they can't take it off you. That's the bit that I'm so shocked about, that people just don't realise. And again, if you go and talk to someone like Rupert Lowe, not having a pop, he's been indoctrinated. Let's call it indoctrination, right? Because the people who taught him have been indoctrinated, right? Go back to what I said about a chemistry teacher. If you say to a chemistry teacher, here's the periodic table, here's the table that's got everything on it, and they take off carbon and they take off something else, and they say, what, now teach the kids. And all of a sudden, they've got to teach kids chemistry with two of them missing. You're not teaching the kid everything. And part of that table is missing. Well, we know it should be there. The difference between us is we know. We're seeing it. We're saying, well, what do you think you're doing? Does that make sense? Gary, Warren, George Katari, Money, Galloway. Someone will have to tell me about Galloway, because I mean, again, I stood up for him, even though I do not believe in his politics in any way or form. Let's have a look. Right. I am going to say good night, God bless, seeing there's no more questions coming up. And
Refill?
huh?
Refill?
Oh, might as well, eh? Thank you. There's a question, Mrs. Dragon. You haven't had a secret wedding, have you? Have you had a secret wedding?
No.
No.
Not this week.
Not this week, no. We haven't had a secret wedding. We will have a wedding, but not yet. Too much shit coming my way at the moment. Question, Mrs. Dragon, have you had a secret wedding? No. Wedding? No. Good night, DD. Right, good night to everyone. So I'm going to say good night, God bless to everyone. I am going to say, don't forget what I believe in. The Constitution is the solution. And we've just got to liven people up. We really want to get more of these seminars booked in and do some more where I'm going to have a look at something in a minute to see if I can organise some other bits and pieces. That's it. Ta-ta for now. Good night. Au revoir. S'il vous plaît, and all that.